Well, howdy there, Internet people. It's Bo again. So, today we are going to talk about what a US or NATO response would look like in a certain eventuality. Before we get into this, I want to point out I don't think this conversation is necessary. However, there has been a whole lot of coverage about this topic, and it has prompted a lot of questions. So we're going to go through it. There's been a lot of coverage about the possibility of Putin deploying a tactical nuke inside of Ukraine. And the question that has arisen from that coverage is what a U.S. response would look like. And we'll go through the various options and likelihood. But again, I do want to point out that everything I'm about to say, Putin knows. Putin knows everything that I'm about to say. And again, this is a tactical device, not a full-blown exchange. Putin is aware that nobody wins that game either. Okay, so the first thing would be to look at the diplomatic routes. What would happen in that international poker game where everybody's cheating? Everybody suddenly cares about the rules. A whole bunch of countries that are tolerant of Russia's current actions suddenly become very hostile. This is something that has been viewed as off the table since the end of World War II. This isn't something that anybody wants. Once they start getting used, the worry is they'll be used more often. So the international community is very much against them being used in any way. So if Putin was to use one, it would further damage their economy. It would cut them off from supplies they need to run the conventional aspect of the war and further isolate them. That all happens without NATO or the U.S. pushing. Then there's the supplies. People talk about how much the West is providing Ukraine. The reality is we're not sending them the best of the best. Not even close. There's a lot of limitations on what the United States and other NATO countries are willing to provide Ukraine, because the concern is that Ukraine uses it to strike inside of Russia's borders, and NATO doesn't want that, and we'll get to why in a minute. If a tactical nuke was used, those rules, they don't matter anymore. So the weapon systems that the U.S. and NATO have been holding back, Ukraine would suddenly have them, which would put Russian cities in jeopardy. Now, the next step would be a direct NATO-U.S. response. Petraeus recently kind of talked about this possibility, and he said, well, the U.S. would destroy the Black Sea Fleet and hit every target they could find inside of Ukraine. Yes, and I'm of the belief that if Putin deployed a tactical nuke, it wouldn't stop there. Anything that was outside of Russia's borders, any military asset that Russia possesses that is outside of their borders becomes a target. That means the contractors they have in Africa, that means the advisors they have training allied countries or countries that have bought weapon systems from them. This means subs, this means ships, this means anything that isn't inside Russia's borders. It's important to remember that the United States and NATO do not have to respond to a tactical nuke with nukes of their own. the warfighting capability of NATO is much greater than that of Russia. And that is based on assessments before we saw how poorly the Russian military was performing. The United States controls the skies. It's that simple. They would use that air power. The U.S. military would use that air power. And it would cripple Russian warfighting capability. Anything outside of those borders is gone. The U.S. won't strike inside of Russia's borders because that could trigger a full exchange. So that's what it would theoretically look like. It would be limited in regards to a nuclear response. I don't think that's something the U.S. would do over a tactical nuke. However, it would be massive in terms of a conventional response. This would be something that the international community would quickly fall behind, and they would support a NATO endeavor to degrade Russia's capabilities. And then you have the covert options, which, if Putin ordered something like that, I would imagine that he would become a target as an individual through covert means. That being said, I don't think this is something that is likely to happen. Putin is aware of everything I just said. Putin is aware, at this point, painfully aware, of how outmatched he is by NATO. The likelihood of doing something that would provoke a NATO response at this point seems slim. It doesn't seem like something he would do. Russia already has a black eye from this little endeavor of theirs. Turning it into something that would take them 50 years to recover from, it just doesn't seem like something somebody would do. It's also worth noting that a lot of the coverage is based primarily on his rhetoric. Rhetoric that has popped up several times in the past, and those who were alive during the Cold War know that it used to be an everyday thing. It's just still something that people are unaccustomed to because we haven't heard it in such a long time. I wouldn't worry too much about this, but the number of questions kind of obligated me to respond. So, anyway, it's just a thought. Y'all have a good day.